Joe, a simple man with simple pleasures, found himself in an absurd situation. A case of mistaken identity landed him in a limousine, whisked away to a life he never knew existed. He was treated like royalty, addressed as Mr. Bigglesworth, a name he barely recognized. Joe was swept up in the whirlwind, his protests unheard over the roar of the luxury car engine. The car pulled up to a gleaming mansion, a palace of marble and glass. Joe, used to his cramped apartment, felt dwarfed. He was ushered inside by an army of staff, their smiles a touch too wide, their greetings a touch too eager. Joe, overwhelmed, allowed himself to be swept along, his mind struggling to catch up with the reality unfolding before him. Joe woke up in a king-sized bed, silk sheets soft against his skin. He had breakfast on a balcony overlooking a sprawling green lawn that seemed to stretch on forever. The day was a blur of extravagance, a shopping spree where price tags were meaningless, a private jet ride to a secluded island, a dinner prepared by a renowned chef. For a while, Joe surrendered to it all. He wore tailored suits, sipped champagne, and made small talk with people who seemed to know him. He experienced the thrill of unlimited wealth, the power it brought, the doors it opened. He felt, for a fleeting moment, invincible. As the hours melted into days, a sense of unease began to gnaw at Joe. The constant attention, the forced smiles, the emptiness in the eyes of the people around him, it all felt staged, artificial. He missed his worn-out armchair, his small television, the familiar faces at the local diner. He realized the people he interacted with, all smiles and flattery, were only interested in his perceived wealth. His attempts to engage in meaningful conversations were met with blank stares or polite dismissals. He found himself surrounded by luxury yet utterly alone. One evening, while sipping a drink at his private bar, Joe overheard a conversation. Two men, unaware of his true identity, were discussing Mr. Bigglesworth. Their words were a revelation. They spoke of ruthless business deals, of backstabbing and deceit, of a man who had sacrificed everything for his wealth. Joe felt a chill run down his spine. Was this the reality behind the opulent facade? Was this the price of such extraordinary wealth? The realization hit him hard. Money didn't buy happiness. It bought isolation, envy, and a dangerous hunger for more. That night, Joe couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned in the luxurious bed, his heart heavy with a growing sense of longing. He missed his simple life, his ordinary routines, the genuine smiles of his neighbors. He missed the feeling of belonging, of being grounded in a reality that wasn't built on fleeting wealth. He knew he couldn't keep up the charade any longer. He had to find a way back, to return to his life before it was too late. He had tasted extraordinary wealth and found it wanting. He realized that true happiness lay not in possessions, but in the warmth of genuine human connection. The next morning, Joe walked out of the mansion and into the waiting limousine. He asked the driver to take him home to his small apartment in his familiar neighborhood. The driver, confused, tried to dissuade him, but Joe was firm. He had tasted the illusion and was ready for reality. As he stepped out of the car and into the familiar surroundings of his street, a wave of relief washed over him. He was home. The experience had changed him. He was no longer the same naive man who had stepped into the limousine a few days ago. He had looked behind the curtain of wealth and found it wanting. He had discovered that true happiness was not about the size of your bank account, but the richness of your life.